Hi everyone, and welcome to another in our series, our sort of extra series of truth episodes where we're inviting people to come and join us for a conversation around what are the three most powerful truths that are rising for them at this time. And today, Denny and I would like to introduce you to a dear friend of ours, Jane Elworthy. And Jane is a beautiful interdimensional sound channel. She is a frame drum maker and teacher. She teaches sound healing. She facilitates retreats in both France and in the outback here in Australia. And she holds a deep love and connection for the outback and the land here. And Denny and I have both been out on retreat with Jane and really enjoyed those experiences. And she also works with clients through shamanic voice release activations. She's a beautiful soul, and we are honored to have her with us today. Welcome, Jane.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much, Fiona and Denny. It's so beautiful to be here. Really exciting.
Welcome, Denny.
Hi, Jane. It's beautiful to have you here. And both Fee and I have made our drums with you, and yes. Travelled to the beautiful travel to the Flinders Ranges with you and Jackie Bushell, which was an amazing experience.
Yes, with the dragon energies.
Oh yes, that's right. Amazing. And I think we were talking about it the other day, and it was about 3 years ago now when we last
apparently I thought it was 2, but who knows what time's doing something strange at the moment.
Yes, all the timelines are shifting.
That's right, they are.
Yeah. So Jane, we'd love to just join you for a conversation today and just ask you what it is that you're experiencing. We've been having many conversations both on our podcast and just together when we're talking about truth, because it's been rising so consciously for us all at the moment. We've all been asked to step into our truth. And so we'd love to explore what are the 3 most powerful truths that are rising for you at this time.
Yes, well, it's the first one that comes to mind for me is that in amongst all this turmoil and in amongst all this, the darkness, if you want to use that word, that's going on, I believe absolutely that the light has already won. That it hasn't yet fully manifested onto the 3D, onto the 3rd dimension here that we're living in. But it's like someone's thrown a big rock into a big pond of water, and all the mud has come up to the surface, and things look really dire globally, not just here. But that I think in a way it's if we want to use those terms, dark and light, I don't know how useful it is, but I believe that the light has already won. It just hasn't had time yet to kind of manifest fully into this dimension. And so I really try and hold that as a truth for myself when I'm, going, what's it all about? And COVID and vaccines and to know that we're absolutely on track as a species. And we're in the middle of the ascension process, and that involves growing pains, and growing pains hurt. And so, I think that's the first one that I would say, that the light it's already a given. It's we're going to be okay, but we just got a bit of crap that we're going to have to go through first. We're not out of the woods yet. Yeah.
How would you describe the light? Is it love?
I think it is, Denny. I think the light is the pure love frequency, or you could use the God force, or it's the energy of the divine, really. Yeah. And you know, we've been left alone because we come down here for to be in Earth School and to learn all these lessons. And sometimes I'm like, why don't you come and save us? You know, but we're here in free choice, of course, and that's not part of the deal. It's for us to learn, and I think we really are learning now, and I think we really are waking up as a species. And it seems to me that every day there's more people waking up and being in that love, in that divine love vibration, or at least forgiving. You know, I think that's at least a step in the right direction, allowing forgiveness in.
And I love the reflection around the growing pains, because we absolutely can't get from where we've been to where we really want to go without having that time in the middle of moving through everything that we need to move through, first of all within ourselves, and then, you know, collectively as a consciousness to get to where we want to go. Yes. So that really resonates with me, that sense of growing pains. I think that's a really beautiful way to look at it.
I love how you brought up Earth School. I love the idea of being here in a school environment. It feels like if that was where we were, we're kind of like at the precipice of a chemistry exam that none of us have studied for. Something along those lines.
Oh, look, absolutely right. And yet, you know what, Denny, we have studied for it, but we've just got to remember, haven't we? Like, that's the thing. We're coming back into remembering that we do know, you know, we do know all the answers in this exam, or at least, you know, the muddling along will get us there. But I think it's really important. I know when I sort of first thought about that Earth School, it really helped me, because it was like, well, I don't actually have to know all the answers. You know, I'm still in school, and that's what we're here for. And I think, you know, we're so close to the, not that it's going to be overnight or anything, but, you know, the so-called graduation into the fifth dimension, I guess we could say, or certainly the ascension process. Yeah. But there's certainly times, I know for me, when, you know, I'm like, what was I thinking? You know, what was I thinking? You know, I think we're up there in the other realms, and we go, yeah, I can do that, and I'll do that this life, and I can take on this life, and we come back down here, and, you know, I know for me it's been like, oh, I want my money back, like, you know. But right at the moment, I'm really convinced that we're absolutely on track, which is ironic, right at a really hard time. But it feels, you know, I feel the resolve even stronger. I don't know how you amazing women, feel about that.
Oh, I absolutely feel that too, and I think it really brings us into the energy of hope when we view it that way, and we can see that there is, well, literally light at the end of the tunnel. We can keep working with that. It pulls us towards that, and I think helps us transition through those, you know, uncomfortable moments that we're going through, the growing pains that we're experiencing at the moment, and just. Yes. It shows us where we're going. I think the light shines for us to know this is where we're heading, so we can follow that, and it's a real support, I think, for a lot of people to see it that way.
Yeah.
There is this interesting thing, though, around the idea of this light and dark, because I sit in a place of knowing that both need each other, you know, the light and the dark. Like, without one, you can't have the other. So I'm just kind of interested in where your views are on that piece, Jane, with the place of balance between the two, as opposed to one being, you know, I'd love to hear more about that kind of the winning piece, or what happens when that happens, what happens to the dark. I'm just kind of fascinated by that piece.
Yeah, well, that's why I said earlier, you know, if you want to use those terms, light and dark, because they are a little iffy, and we've tended to romanticize the light and, you know, demonize the dark. And I'm absolutely with you, you know, Denny. I think they're both absolutely important. what can I say? Maybe the dark, I think the it's so the dark is useful in a way, but I think in the way that I've spent a lot of my shamanic years deep down in the dark space, and it's from there that all those analogies, the seeds have to be in the dark to birth and all of that. But in this sense, I think what it is what I'm talking about is it's unconsciousness. It's an energy that doesn't necessarily have our best interests at heart, and also is not compassionate, and is not. It's not yet conscious. It doesn't have the light of the divine embodied within it yet. But dark itself, I absolutely agree. I have a deep love of the underworld. Spent a lot of my years down there, probably a few too many, really. the
reframing of conscious and unconscious, that instantly resonates with me,
yes.
Because shining that light on the bits of us that need to be seen. Okay, thank you for that. That completely reframes it for me.
Yes, and I talk about also, an analogy of if you have a room, like you've got two rooms next to each other and there's a door in between, and this room is completely filled with light and this room is completely dark, and you open the door, what happens? That the light floods into the darkness. The darkness doesn't make the light room go dark. I think light or consciousness, as we're talking about, is so much more powerful than that sense of darkness or unconsciousness. And
what a beautiful visual. I love that.
Yeah.
It's an interesting noise going on somewhere.
Is that the wind? Is it the wind chimes? Can you hear those wind chimes?
Could be. Yes, I can see them moving in the reflection of the glass.
I think, Denny, the lawnmower noise has come in somehow.
I'm hoping he's going to be finishing soon. Sorry, I don't know how to change that other than to...
That's okay. It's just gone again. So
it's fine. Gone.
Yeah, it's popping in. But I love that. I love that. That sense of light is consciousness, and it's a really beautiful way to kind of perceive it. I think that light energy is consciousness, because that's really what we're in. We're in the awakening process. We're awakening into consciousness. We're all waking up. So I love that frame of reference to work with.
Yes. Sorry, Denny, go ahead.
I was just going to say, so if we reframe it into unconscious and conscious, and that we're already there means that the consciousness is already there, that there's enough of us. Maybe there was a tipping point where there's enough of us that are interested in living a very conscious life. Even if that consciousness is, as you can see in the world today, that's they're being conscious of what's going on in the world, in the darker places. That completely reframes it for me. I love that. Thank you.
And it's shining light on the dark parts of ourselves, isn't it? The bits that, where we've got into polarizing against each other and all of that. And another thing that is just coming to me now is, like we tend to think of, the light warrior, but it's all about frequency, and just, holding that as much as we can on any given moment, that light frequency, and that does something, that does something in the world. Like I make sure when I can, unless there's a huge queue, that when I'm at the supermarket, I go through and get with a real person, instead of the automatic thing to put all your groceries through, and just be in really conscious presence with that person, and just watch them. I suppose it is a bit of a study what I'm doing, but I just watch how their body language changes, and how they can often go from being you know, quite down because how boring and how terrible for them with how people are sometimes, to really lighting up. And it might just be for a moment while I'm there, but just to, I think it's these, I've been thinking a lot lately in terms of small victories, you know, instead of, you know, I didn't do that today. I had all these things on my list I didn't do, you know, but I did this and this. And, you know, just to take the pressure off ourselves too, and just go with where we can make a bit of change, and particularly within ourselves. I think it's really a time where it's down to the wire with us. Really, we can't do anything until we keep working, you know, on ourselves, just shining that light.
Well, that was a bit of a mirror for me, because I keep away from people in public as much as possible, and that's a big call out for me to actually interact a little bit more on that day-to-day level, because you're so right. Those little exchanges can make such a difference to someone's day, and therefore to the people that they interact with.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a ripple effect, isn't it? You know, but I think what we were saying before about the light, you know, has won. It's out in the, you know, the matrix. It's already there in the matrix. It's just got to filter through into the third dimension, as I know you both know and work in that way. Same as our aura. You know, things begin in our auric field before they manifest in the physical body. So, you know, the auric field of Gaia, or the earth, it's the light's already won there, is what I mean, you know, and it's sort of filtering through into the body of the earth and her inhabitants.
Beautiful.
Being us.
And what about your second truth, Jane? What's missing there?
My second truth was around, very topical at the moment for me, was around what a killer judgment is. I think it's such a big such a big mistake, and it's easy to do. You know, it's all around. Again, it's part of that 3D Earth School thing of we think we're separate from each other, and we're here in separation, so that the work is, you know, to come back into a unity consciousness, but that we judge each other so harshly, and at the moment so extremely harshly. And I know I'm certainly being judged and excommunicated for some of my choices at the moment around this particular scenario that we're experiencing on planet Earth. And it's been so deeply sad. And we, you know, I used to do it all the time, particularly when I was younger. Look at that unconscious person, or look at that. And, you know, we have no idea of that person's story. We don't know why they're like they are, or anything about them. And or if they're meant to be, maybe they're meant to be on planet Earth. Maybe they're meant to be an asshole this life. You know, maybe that's what they're meant to come here and do. So we really don't know. And I know when I can be out of judgment is when I feel really free. I feel my most free. Yeah.
That's a biggie, especially right now, right? With everything being so polarized. It's if you don't think the same way as me, then what's wrong with you? You know, there's no understanding of all the layers and the stories that take everybody to a different truth. So yeah, I really feel that judgment right now is causing an enormous amount of pain.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And of course, it comes from fear. And so, you know, we can see how that plays out, the fear, the collective fear, and how that's caused the judgment. So I guess fear is probably the killer, and judgment's a byproduct of it.
Yeah.
That we fear things we don't understand. Then we want to kill it.
Mm.
Yeah.
I was having a conversation with a girlfriend yesterday about this piece of we were talking about very relevant vaccine conversations and where different people are sitting on this, and both of us were reflecting on the fact that there's no shades of gray in any of that. There's just if you make a decision to do this, then everything about you becomes that decision, as opposed to that's just that little decision and I see you in so many other ways.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's been blanketed. The whole person is then a particular way. Yeah, and it's working on both sides.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you see it working out in politics. You're either this or you're this, and there's no that suddenly I'm a mother and I'm an artist or I'm a whatever gets hidden from, no, you're either this, you believe this, or you believe this, and that's all I can see. It's incredible.
It is.
That's truth energy, isn't it? It's very black and white, so it's one way or the other, when in fact there's so much that sits in the middle of those two polarizing places. So yeah, it is the judgment piece really sings to me, because I've caught myself out recently in that space, sitting in that space, and it was a kind of eye opener for me to see that in myself, because I felt I may be conscious enough not to do that anymore, but clearly not. And and I feel that energy quite strongly around us at the moment, because what the truth energy that we're sitting in at the moment has done, it's sort of brought everything up to the surface. So I think we're finding it more easily to see within ourselves, as you said earlier, Jane. It starts within. We're able to see more easily within ourselves where we do step into that place, and it feels like judgment is a piece of that that's following on now from this truth energy that we're sitting in. It's like we're going into that next place with it, and it could be looking at where we're very judgmental, where we quickly judge, instead of taking a moment to walk in that person's shoes or empathize with that person in some way.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm catching it in myself all the time at the moment, and it's like you, Fee. Oh, I didn't think that was still there. And I mean, we spend a lot of time focusing at the moment of how all this the unconscious stuff is rising in the earth. I mean, on the planetary level, but of course we are the earth, and so it can't not rise within us as well. And it's it's a great, exciting clearing, not easy, but to see those things in yourself that you thought weren't there anymore. But yeah, no, it's exciting time.
I can't help but feel that judgment is part of being human. It's just a pointer at something. So it arises for us to go, okay, out of balance, or but what amazes me right now, and it's something that I talk about in conversations with friends, but I don't know that we've really brought it up on the podcast, is that the so light worker, or that kind of realm, sitting in so much judgment right now. I see it so much, and it's frustrating as hell to see what we might consider conscious people sitting in such a judgmental place and not seeing it. Are you witnessing that too, Jane?
Absolutely. Look, yes, I think there's I think it's called hubris. Look, so much so, and it's why I love it out in the outback, and that's one of the reasons, is because what I've found, and not always, of course, anywhere, is that they're way sort of like they're often quite non-judgmental. They're just like, oh, whatever, love, yeah, no worries, and it's very different to some of, like you were saying, Denny, some of my new age friends who are sitting in high judgment because they think they've got to a certain place, and maybe we have in some ways, but certainly not in that way. And it's really, really shining a light on it. Yeah. Yeah, it's a real big one at the moment. Feels that way for me. And it feels like also there's a dopamine rush, when we judge someone. It's like, excellent, I've got it all worked out now. That person's really unconscious. That one's that, and I know something, and excellent, I'm right. It makes one feel safe. If you judge people, I think, we can feel safe around who and where we are, when really we don't really have any idea about that.
It's maybe an invitation to explore that within ourselves, I think, when we catch ourselves doing it.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I was just thinking, because this is another conversation I was having just yesterday, and that is when you see a pattern, but you don't actually want to give it away yet because you enjoy the drama of the pattern.
Yeah, exactly. It's quite delicious, isn't it?
Can be, yeah, absolutely. Even if you can see that it's like an unconscious way of being, and you can catch yourself doing it, it's like, yeah, I just don't want to give that up yet. I'm enjoying that. I'm enjoying that story.
Yeah, that's right.
It's bizarre.
It's comfortable though, isn't it, to be in your old patterns? It's a real comfortable place to be because it's so familiar.
Yes, absolutely. It is comfortable, and I think that's we're going to have to get used to a little more discomfort. And that's tough, because it's the incarnation as a human isn't easy at the best of times, and now it's like, oh my God, there's more. And so it's understandable. We're all doing the best we can, I think. So of course we want to stay in those comfy places, but they're moving on swiftly, I think, which is exciting.
And your third truth, Jane?
What was my third one? Well, my third one was that I've been thinking about this too, and I guess it ties in with the other two, is that a truth for me is that everything but I'll say everything I think and everything I say goes somewhere. It goes into the matrix, or the light grid, and that I've got a responsibility with my thoughts, because that's one place that we can stay comfy and get away with whatever. We can be spiritual when we're talking to someone, or running a group or running a retreat, and we go into that kind of teacher mode, and then the rest of the time, not the rest of the time, but at times, we can if I speak just for me, my thoughts can be, oh, this is never going to work, and I can't do that, and and it's like that I'm actually creating that, and also with what I say, with my conversations with people, and that it does go somewhere, and that if I go, the earth's, everybody's crap, that I, I've got a responsibility, if I want something else, to think and speak in a different way. And that's another area, where I certainly catch myself out. And I don't think it's like, I think it's okay to be angry and things like that. It's not about monitoring every feeling state, but something particularly around our thoughts, that we think because they're invisible and we're such a visual world, that thoughts don't kind of do anything or go anywhere because we can't see them, but they so do. I mean, it's all frequency. As a sound healer, I know that it all comes down to frequency. And that's, we're powerful. We're like antennas, and that's what we're beaming out, and that goes somewhere. And I think how fast we actually move on the ascension process is partly due to how fast we can actually keep our thoughts in a higher frequency, and our words. Yeah. But it's okay if we have a piece of chocolate cake or bust out with whatever, we've tended to go more there, I think, like with the physical stuff. But I think for me at the moment, it's like the thoughts and the words.
I was listening to a podcast the other day, and there was an interview with the woman, and I don't know whether you've heard of her or not. She was a TED Talk, and she was she was a brain surgeon, but she was something around the brain. She was a doctor or a scientist, and she had a stroke where she lost all the left side of her brain and was only operating out of her right side. And in that happening, she lost the sensation of her body. So she just became frequency, and she lost all attachment and just became part of the collective and felt the collective. And it's fascinating. If you want to listen to it, I suggest you do that. I can put a link to it. But with that, she then trained herself over 8 years, because of she lost the me, the identity. Her desire to get the left side of her brain working again was so that she could serve humanity and let people know how it was operating from this other side of her brain, because so much opened to her, being such a left brain thinker in her past. And one thing she's now teaching is this whole brain living, where when you have a thought, a negative thought, it actually only takes, I think it's 90 seconds for that thought to travel through and out of your body, but it's our past or our future that keeps it in the spiral. There's something in that thought that we keep it going. And actually, if we can just put something else in our brains, and that can go. And that's kind of like on a scientific level. So she was saying about how if you have a bad thought, instead of going, I want to think something good, it's too much of a leap. So if you're in an argument and you're thinking something bad, she said, think about taxes, because taxes will take you just enough away from the other one to be comfortable. But now you're off that thought. So you're now on something else. And it's like an incremental step away from a negative thought to something else. And that really resonated with me, because sometimes, when you're there's almost pleasure in bad thoughts sometimes, or, angry thoughts. You want to kind of stay with them. And actually they move through you really quickly. So there's something in the story of it that we love to attach to and to hold on to.
We absolutely do. It's quite delicious, to keep with it, and then it spirals, and then the pain body's having a nice feed on that, and and on it goes. But that's fascinating about I probably would still put taxes in the bad thought category myself, but I get the drift.
Bad thought, but not personal, though.
Not personal. No. Yeah, that's fascinating to kind of incrementally slide out of it, if we can catch it. I think, because we're under a spell often when we're in those negative thoughts. We're identifying through the thought and not even aware that that we're in it necessarily.
Well, and thoughts can be so ingrained, they can come from past lifetimes as well. And so, often there's such a habit within us that they, as you say, they feed our minds. So, they're just so habitual that they become part of who we are, and therefore become part of our experience. They create our experience. Yes. They're so powerful. There's so much power in our thoughts and our belief system. And once we really understand that, we can really shift, I think, ourselves into a much more aligned place within who we really are. And so I think it's lovely that you bring that up as a truth for discussion at the moment, because I think the more we talk about it, the more we can all work with it within ourselves to change it. And then we change something in the collective, the way the collective works, because there's a more positive energy going into the collective, which helps everyone.
Yes. It does help everyone. I think it's a responsibility that we've got. And you're right, it can come from past life or just this life earlier on. We're usually in the past or the future, aren't we? Very rarely in the present.
And it's in the present that we can catch it. Yes. And what I've been thinking about is this last couple of years is that it's been harder to catch. It's like collectively where it's got noisier, and it's harder to pull yourself into that moment of not being in the past or in the future and just being in the present. I remember a couple of years ago, it felt really a lot easier for me to stretch the present moment where I could catch those things quicker. And it feels like in this last couple of years, there's been a lot more pulling us away from that. Yes. Probably for a reason. I think it's got to be a collective reason for it.
Yes, well, I've experienced a similar thing actually, and this isn't necessarily my area. It's probably more yours, Fee, and perhaps yours too, Denny. But I've noticed that the astral realm is very present at the moment. I'm like, I stopped. I'll do sound channelings because I know, I'm very aware of who's coming through, because I know the sound signatures and the codes and all of that. But if I'm just to sit, I completely stopped channeling like for others, because at the moment I have, because I found that the astral realm was just really interfering. And I'd be really interested to hear what you got to say about that. And I wasn't finding, unless I was super, super strong, the discernment, because I think it's really, really, really strong at the moment that our thoughts, I mean, this is another probably even conversation, but our thoughts aren't necessarily our own right at the moment, completely. So another reason to be present. And to be in a frequency where that astral realm actually can't reside, through the law of harmonic resonance, so that we can be clear. But if we're in those negative thoughts, that's where we're in a frequency where certainly the astral realm can just slide on in and muddle us up quite a bit.
I would be interested to know what your reference for the astral realm is, because I feel like it might be something slightly different to mine. So I'm keen to understand what that is. When you talk about the astral realm, what is that to you?
To me, it's it's between, I guess, the third and the fifth dimension, but it's not necessarily the fourth dimension, because my understanding is that is time. It's the realm where there's a lot of negative influences that can come through from other beings and other dimensions, and it's also the realm that I would think of in terms of people that have left the planet, have died, but haven't necessarily left, and maybe are still kind of hanging on a little bit. So some of that area would be my understanding of it. It's a little more complex than that, in that it's a frequency band. So there's the frequency band that we work within as humans, and some are up this end of it and some are up that end of it, depending on consciousness, but it's still within a frequency band. And then there's a different frequency band that maybe goes from this one up here a little bit. And to me, that would be the astral realm. So it's not visible, it's not third dimensional, but it's not necessarily of a high vibration either. And a lot of interference, can come through in that realm. That's my understanding, but that's why I said I'd love to hear yours. Yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, because I think of those frequencies, I guess, as the astral realm. So I think of them as not one thing, and there are many of them. And I haven't, and I'm not familiar with the one that you speak of. It's not something that I have connected to personally. So that's why I was really interested, because it feels like you've opened up a door of exploration for me. So it's something that I would like to maybe look at and see and observe within myself if there's a reason why I haven't connected with it. in some way, or what my frame of reference around it becomes. So I was just keen to understand it in the terms, and you described it beautifully as you see it and sense it. So that gives me, and hopefully people that are listening to this podcast, a sense of what that is for you, because then they can see whether that resonates with them, or look at it in their way as well.
So Fee, can you give us I'm really interested in your perspective on the realm, the astral realm.
Well, I think of it as the astral realm. So it encompasses all of the different dimensional frequencies that we work with. And there are many that I haven't connected to, but I am. And I guess maybe through the Akashic Records, familiar with the fact that they're there. And yes, I see them sometimes as frequencies, so different frequencies. Sometimes they're shown as colors. Sometimes they're shown as places I connect into energetically. So they have different, I think the only way that I can describe it, and this is maybe because I'm more clairsentient, is they feel different. So for me, it's a vibrational feeling that they're different. So for example, I obviously, as we all are, very familiar with the third dimension and the physical experience. I work a lot in what I call the fourth dimensional space, which is for me, from my frame of reference, that's the mind. And sometimes it's a bit of a grey area for me, though, the emotional field. The fifth dimension is the area I work in the most. That's the Akashic Records. It's a time of no time that I'm familiar with. And I have, from time to time, worked in the sixth and seventh dimension. But the only way that I can really describe them is a different feeling, to sense of what they are. And I'm very familiar with them, so I know when I'm in any one of those. Mm-hmm. What are they to you, Denny? Let's throw that in. It's really interesting, isn't it, to get everyone's perspective?
Different interpretations.
Yeah. And for me, I kind of like that's an area that I'm interested in hearing about how you describe it, but I don't work in that way. I don't need that. To me, that frame of reference isn't important. I just kind of like it. It is what it is. That's just who I am. I'm kind of bring everything down to the earth plane and language that works for me better. But the bits and pieces of what you've said in the last 2 years, one thing that I've noticed, and I know other people have noticed, is there has been a change to picking up things, synchronicities, messages. There's been more noise, and there's been a shift. And I've noticed how much I've shifted in the last 2 years to not wanting to pick up as much. So I can really feel what you're speaking of there, Jane, where I'm kind of like brought my practices, I'm going to say closer to home. So I've been doing a lot more physical, earth, walking, nature, art, and that has felt just more comfortable for me during this last year, 2 years. And the only way I can because I questioned, whether I was trying to escape from it, and that didn't feel true either. It just feels like I needed to bring everything in, so that maybe I wasn't being so influenced, because I think that there's a lot of stuff out there right now, and just to bring everything in closer is the only way I can describe how I work. And while I can open myself up to it when I'm doing readings or when Fee and I are tapping in, it still does feel like I've kept my field closer. So I don't know if that makes any sense to anyone else but me.
It makes absolute sense, and I think that's what I was meaning by not doing channeling in that way. It's like there's a lot more low-flying stuff all over. I was just thinking, it's like, you know, sometimes when you put the radio on in your car and you're on the station, so you're on a frequency band, and then another radio station kind of comes in, like if it's really close, and you get a voice or a song that's in a different frequency, and it's interfering with what you're trying to listen to. It's that kind of, I'm not saying it's evil, you know, or anything, although there are all sorts of beings that, from my understanding, can be present in the astral realm. But yeah, it's more that low-flying stuff, that some of which is giving people good info, and some of it is like, you know, go away, like it's not relevant. And you've got to be really strong to tell the difference sometimes. And there's a lot of, I'm noticing there's a lot of channeling around at the moment that, you know, then it's not who the person says it is. And I'm not saying that they are lying. It's just that, yeah, anyway, that there's a lot of low-flying stuff around that can look one way but be something else. And I think it's a time where, yeah, I think grounding practices, yeah, I try and keep it really simple too. I work with the frame drum, as you know, a lot with that, and just being in the bush and keeping quiet.
I remember when we were out at the Flinders, and through your channeling and your music, that's probably where I could just feel, and I think that's the clairsentient piece too, of the different frequencies. It was just more of a feeling of okay, I can feel this opening to me, and for me it was really here, and just feeling almost like a stepping through to different levels of something. So that's probably as tangible as I could put it. But I love the analogy of the radio station, because that's exactly, it's like right now we're halfway between two, and there's just this crackle that keeps on coming through, and it's so uncomfortable that it's better to turn the friggin' radio off than to sit with it in that state.
Exactly, because we're moving into a higher frequency, but we have to turn the dial for that to happen, and at the moment it's not right on the station. You know, it's in between, and that's the exact discomfort that we're in. That's a great way to talk about it. Yeah, turn it off. Yeah, turn it off.
Absolutely, and I think sometimes the most powerful thing we can do for ourselves is to turn it off and step away from it, and just, you know, be in our own space.
Definitely. And of course, if we're watching TV, well, that's definitely, you know, it's all coming through there. And I think it's really important to make sure we turn that off. Yeah.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Thanks for that, Jane. That's something that I want to sit and think about a bit more, actually.
Yeah.
There is a lot, I think, you brought through in your truths that will, I think, ignite conversations and inspire people to, you know, kind of look at themselves and take those truths within themselves and think about them. So thank you so much for bringing those through today.
Oh, it's wonderful to have a conversation with you both and see you both, because I love you both. Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
And we love you too.
Yeah, thanks for being here today, Jane. We appreciate it.
It's really beautiful. Thank you.
Thanks, Jane.